I'm Anthony Wright, and I am your co-host today on The Living Conversation with
Adam Dietz.
and Adam. Before the break, we were talking about this idea of, in a mystical way, every person experiences the same thing, but in a lower level, each person has their own way to it.
Mm.
And I remember actually in at the California Institute of Integral Studies, there was a scholar who said because we all come to it from a different perspective, it means our transcendent experience is different. But I don't necessarily agree with that. Um, what are your thoughts about that?
That's very much being and non-being. So we have
And
the
that's a
actually
Taoist idea.
the Lao Tzu in chapter one talks about Lao Tzu, the first philosopher of Taoism in chapter one talks about that being and non-being are like two sides of the same coin, to
Um,
which to contemplate and understand. But we are all the same and we are all different. So
at the same time,
at the same time, at the same time, two sides of the same coin. So we all have Tao in us. Or for Confucius, we all have heaven in us. Or for Christians, we all have God in us. I
mhm.
hope that many of them come to that same understanding.
But it's all just a way of talking about it.
Yes, but it is something that exists that is beyond words that we hopefully that Carl Jung would say we're on our hero's journey to experience and integrate into our lives. That actually it's what every single person on this earth is meant to do. And to be a wholly integrated psychology, you need to experience the soul and integrate it into your life. So, but at the same time, we are all different. We are all completely unique. We are all put in completely unique situations. So, this for Confucius, your uniqueness is your destiny. We talked about in episode one. Yes, for Confucius, to use this transcendent unity of religion or philosophy, for Confucius, the name for that highest level would be heaven. Then
No,
heaven in a human being is called humanity. Mm. We are all human beings.
yeah,
Is the most important. So Chinese philosophy doesn't want to be very mystical. They want to say that is your humanity is the most basic, simple, obvious thing. Your humanity, not very mystical. But in reality, it's also the most transcendent. It has the highest level. Anyway, not to get too far afield here, but the point is we are all different in the sense that we are all walking bits of heaven in this land, in this configuration.
right.
My face, my skin, my body, my mind, my experience, my family, my neighborhood is all unique. And at the highest level of thinking, to which Confucius himself said he didn't really go that far, that high, but at the highest level of thinking, embodying, experiencing, we are all walking bits of heaven meant in our lives to help bring harmony into our situation. So in that sense, we are all different. We all have a unique destiny, unique unique pathways or unique principle, unique pattern to bring heaven into our life. We talked about a lot in episode one. Mm.
Right, 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 right. So, um, one of the things that I talk about in my classes is actually this idea of belonging and having certain thought patterns that you agree with your neighbors about so that you can belong, and that it was actually a real revelation to me to understand that belonging to a community sometimes supersedes the choices that you make as an individual. And the example was that there was a woman whose grandfather lived in Oregon or Northern California, and was very much in favor of Planned Parenthood. And then he moved to Tennessee and joined an evangelical community and completely flipped, so that he made a different choice so he could belong. Um, so that was very useful to me, and I'm kind of wanting to bring this back a little bit to um, this flooding the zone with all of these contrary ideas, but I do appreciate that there may be um, some sort of intention or that people are just trying to belong in their own way of thinking about things.
Yes, and it's
You
being,
talk a little more about that?
yeah, that is being, we don't live in a vacuum. We are being consciously, intentionally manipulated. So in our textbook, we go over many different things, and you've spoken on this very poignantly, very eloquently about manipulative techniques.
Oh, right. And I can talk about that in a minute. But
Yeah, but we live in a society, we live in a culture where people want to sell us stuff. People want us to join them. We live in a evangelical society in many more ways than one. It's not just evangelical Christian, it's that someone's always trying to sell you something.
oh,
We live in a Calvinist society that if we can get into that later. But for our class, we studied textbook critical thinking as well, which I've come to appreciate more and more, where one obstacle to critical thinking we learn in chapter 2 of the Lewis Vaughan book is group-centered thinking. Okay? So group-centered thinking is when you put aside your own natural reason, humanity, to join a group and to make your group feel better and to just take what your group is saying as the best. And
right,
you choose your group over critical thinking. It's okay to belong to a group. We want to belong to a group. We're social creatures, like
right,
Confucius said.
right.
We're human beings. We want to be with other human beings. It's part of being human being. But when we put aside our own faculties, our own reasonableness, our own humanity to join a group is a big obstacle to critical thinking. That's one. Also, one more point from the textbook that I get, and I see this very often in a certain political movement right now, is that they use a fallacy of ridicule. And the fallacy of ridicule is I'm in the inside joke. I'm part of this cool crew, which to me is absurd because I've never met a group of less cool people that are manipulating especially the number one leader is the least cool person I've ever seen in my life, but we won't name names or anything. The point is, they get into this momentum. I want to belong. I'm on this inside joke. You could ask them about politics. They'll say, "Did you hear what this one person did the other day?" Ha 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 ha. And they have no idea what's going on. It's just they want to scoff and joke
Right.
and they think they're part of an inside crew. And they often don't get into higher level thinking, discussion, or analysis. They just simply are able to say, "Ha, I know the same joke as you. I'm part of the same group. Let's move on and be part of this group together, ha ha ha, even to our own detriment or the detriment of everyone around us." Or as Raphael Warnock spoke to, the actual hypocrisy of their own proposed beliefs, truly unchristian ideals that are being
Yeah.
put forth.
And I don't think these people are bad people. They,
Right.
they just have chosen to be involved with uh, motivated ignorance or
Forgive them, Father, for they know
tested
not what they
ignorance.
do, right?
Pardon me?
Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do, right? I know in my own family, I have people, some of the nicest people you'll ever meet, but they don't want to think critically about politics, so they just devolve into letting their whole political identity be these scoffing jokes of ridiculing the opposite party.
Well, you've talked a little bit about this. Speak about the story about playing chess with a pigeon.
Yeah, I don't know if we mentioned this in episode 1 or not, but when I teach critical thinking in the textbook, I try to get into much more than just a textbook. But the textbook,
Right.
I tell the students these are the rules of the game. Western society, Western philosophy, and I know we talked about this in episode 1 now that I'm remembering, it is built upon certain rules that you allow the good argument to outweigh the weaker argument. So these are the rules of the game. If you know these rules, if you're willing to create a good argument and propose it and accept good arguments, then you belong at the big kids table, I tell them.
Oh, right.
If you're willing to be reasonable and look at premises and conclusion and make a good faith choice, then welcome to the big kids table. That's what society has been built on. That's what science has been built on. That's what technology has been built on. You don't take a bad idea and say, oh, because my friend gave me this idea, I'm going to use it to build a car. Okay, well, your car is going to blow up or whatever, right?
Right.
Or your government's going to collapse if you take an idea just because your friend said so. But
Yeah.
if you're part of the big kids table and you take ideas because they're better than others, then you belong in the conversation. Welcome. Welcome. But no matter how well you know the rules, no matter how well you play this game, like chess, you could be a master chess player. But then you come to the table, you come to the chessboard, and who is your opponent today? A pigeon.
Right.
What's the pigeon gonna do? The pigeon is gonna knock over all the pieces, doesn't care about your rules. It's gonna do its business on the board,
Yep.
and it's gonna strut around like it owns the place. And that's what we're seeing with many people who are doing that to our institutions, who are doing that to our society as a whole. They're not acting in good faith. They are knee deep in textbook obstacles to critical thinking, like face saving or self-centered or group-centered thinking. They're causing lots of trouble. They're not playing the game in good faith,
Yep. Ad
and
hominem
they're
stuff.
messing up the chessboard and acting like they're the best.
But also I guess there's a this idea then you get into false equivalency where one would say, well, wait, maybe they have a point, but the pigeon doesn't care about the game.
No, no, you
I mean,
you
the
can't
pigeon is a
argue.
lovely
You
creature,
can't
but
play chess with a pigeon. You
no.
can't cast your pearls before swine. You can't play chess with a pigeon. Confucius said the one type of person that's difficult to deal with is a low person and a low person for Confucius only emphasized profit. These are difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
They don't belong at the big kids table. So best thing you could do is go back, retreat if they're in power, like in Chinese philosophy, go back to your village, go back, tend to your field, you know, read your own, cultivate yourself, cultivate yourself.
Right.
That way you can endure. That way when they inevitably fall and stumble because they're going against the principle of life, because they're not going with the flow of Tao, then you'll be ready and you'll be even more cultivated, uninjured, unharmed, and you can come contribute more again.
Yeah. So on that note, we have to take a short break. I'm Anthony Wright, and I am your co-host
Adam Dietz.
and we are in the midst of the living conversation. So we'll take a short break and be right back. So stay tuned.
I'm Adam Dietz, and you can contact me at dietzadam@gmail.com, Dietz Adam@gmail.com, or if you prefer and you're active on Instagram, I'm at the dot way between on Instagram. I'm also on Substack, the way between on Substack. That's where almost everything will be filtered through on Substack. You can also search us up on YouTube, but I think those are the best avenues, those first three. So I really appreciate everyone chiming in. Please give us any information that you have about how you've been able to protect yourself, cultivate yourself, grow, flourish in these times.
And I'm Anthony Wright, and my website is theonaut, theonaut.com. And it's A as in Apple, S as in Sam, W as in William, numeral two, N as in Nora, R as in Robert. I'll say that again, ASW2NR at theonaut.com, or you can make a comment directly on my website.